Alright, so in the beginning, inshallah, let me post the text for y'all. Sounds weird on the screen. Okay, now. Alright, so Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So the last class, just a little recap. We covered where we talked about the rukn or the arkan of Iman, the pillars pertaining to belief. And we also went over the definition of the belief, which the Shaykh who quotes, Imam Suyuti, Abdul Rahman Suyuti, he says that Iman, linguistically, its literal meaning just means acceptance, while its Sharia meaning means acceptance of the heart of everything which is known that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with. We also, and we stopped there. That's where we had stopped at. Now, where we will continue at is the statement by Imam Qurtubi. All right, so we'll pick up where we left off at. Is a statement by Imam Qurtubi. Let me get my text out, inshallah. And then we'll start from there. There we go. Let me just get to my page. All right, so قال المؤلف رحمه الله, the author said, وذكر إمام القرطبي في الشرح صحيح مسلم قال مذهب السلف وآئمة فتوى من الخلف أن من صدق بهذه أمور يعني واقعات في الحديث جبريل عليهم الصلاة والسلام لما جاء إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم تصديقا جازما كان مؤمنا حقيقة سواء كان ذلك عن برهين قاطعة أو عن اعتقادة جزيمات. وعلى هذا انقرضت أعمار كريمة انتهى. وذكر عيني في شرح البخاري أن إيمان عند جمهور تصديق الرسول عليهم الصلاة والسلام في كل ما علم ما جيء به بالضرور تصديقا جزاما مطلقا سواء كان بذلك أو كان بدليل أو لا. فقولهم مجرد تصديق إشارة إلى أنه لا يعتبر فيه كونه مقرنا بعمل الجوارح تقييد بضروري إخراج ما لا يعلم بضروري أن الرسول جاء به باجتهادية الاجتهادية فإنها غير داخلة في المسمى الإيمان، ولهذا لا يكفر منكرها بالإجماع. وتقييد الجازم لإخراج التصديق الظني فإنه غير كاف في حصول الإيمان، وتقييد بالإطلاق لرفع وهم خروج اعتقاد القلب فإن إيمانه صحيح عند أكثرين وهو صحيح انتهى. So he mentions in here, he says, Imam Qurtubi mentions in his commentary on the Sahih Muslim that the madhab of the Salaf, the school of the early, the predecessors, the Salaf, in the Imams of the Khalaf, in the latter, the latter time, meaning those Imams after the Salaf, are agreed that whoever accepts these matters, meaning those mentioned in the Hadith of Jibril, upon him from the Hadith of Jibril alayhi salam, when he came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, with firmly convinced belief, is a true believer, is a believer in truth, regardless if that belief be derived from irrefutable proofs or from the affirmed tenets of belief, right? In such a manner, the lifespan is made to have value. So this refers back to a conversation we were having at the masjid Friday. Someone asked the question, if a person embraces exactly what the hadith says, don't ask any howness, don't allow the mind to deviate, just embrace it, would this be safe for the person? And here the Shaykh who is explaining that the person is safe. He has Iman without any of the titles connected to it, right? He doesn't have to know any of the madhahib al-kalam. He doesn't have to know ilm al-kalam, none of the scholarly theology, right? Meaning that he doesn't have to know madhab, know the kalam of any of the ulama, right? However, he just embraces exactly what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, just as that, and just leaves it without putting any interpretation. Just leaves it. He does tafweed. Is this person a believer? And the Shaykh is saying yes. He's quoting Imam Qurtubi as one of his sources. He's saying that this is the path of the ulama, the scholars of the Salaf, and also the ulama of the Khalaf, right? The ulama of the latter generation, right? Just to give clarity to it, the ulama of the Salaf is not the Salafi of our time. They are a farqa. They are a deviant group. They are not from the first three generations of Islam. Well, ulama al-Khalaf does not mean that it's a deviant group. This is what the Salaf had, the Salafi, the Salafiyah, the group, the Wahhabi group, they have coined this term to have a negative connotation to it, right? On a negative note, a negative perspective. And so with this class, Ikhwan, we have to begin to remove, if we've been affected with the Wahhabi criteria, we have to remove that from us, all right? And use the criteria of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. If not, then your mouth will claim to be Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, but your mind and your heart will constantly keep referring back to Ahl Salafiyah, right? Or Wahhabiyya, I should say. So anyway, so the Khalaf, when you're talking about the Khalaf, you're talking about the group, the Imams after the generation of the Salaf, because during the Salaf, you didn't have a whole lot of people that came with you did have deviant people with deviant ideology. However, after the Salaf, during beginning, basically starting at Imam Ashari, he codified the creed of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Imam Maturidi, Abu Mansur Maturidi, he codified the creed, the belief of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. He put it in, basically exposing in a manner, because some of their major opponents at the time was the Mu'tazila. And with the Mu'tazila being their opponent, one of the beliefs that the Mu'tazila had spread was that the Quran was created. And the Imams, those Imams, they refuted it, and codified the system of belief. So every issue, when you're reading books such as the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd or Tahawi and so on and so forth, those are books that are dealing with Ilm Kalam. And the Shaykh, he'll clarify as we, continue to move forward. So as far as the Imams of the Khalaf, these are the Imams after the latter period who was in authority within Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Not meaning the Khalaf is the opposite of Salaf, and the Salaf is right and the Khalaf is wrong. This is not the case. So anyway, so he goes on and he continues. That anyone who accepts Iman, when just the same way that it came, that the way it came to the message of Allah sallallahu when Jibril, he said, with firm convinced belief is considered a believer, regardless if that belief is derived from barahina qata', right, irrefutable proofs, or affirm tenets of belief, or those affirm tenets of belief. In such a manner, the lifespan is made to have value. So now, what does this do now? If our learned men amongst the community in Ahl Sunnah, right, across the board, our learned men, they wouldn't hold the everyday common person accountable for knowing the beliefs according to, according to the books of Kalam, but rather if the person has said it, if someone, like for instance, you ask the everyday person, every person should know exactly what's in the Hadith of Jibril, and they should believe in it even if they cannot fully elaborate on it, right? Like an example, if someone was to ask you what is belief, and you replied, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَتُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ وَكُتُبِهِ وَرُسُولِهِ وَيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, right? وَتُؤْمِنُوا بِالْقَدْرِ وَخَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ. If you said that and believed that wholeheartedly, you're considered a believer, right? Without even having the ability to elaborate on it, right? What is belief? To believe in Allah, His messengers, the books, the angels, right? And so on and so forth, to the end of the hadith. If a person is able to do so, and this is why if you look, the chapter, it opened up with those two proofs. The first one was the ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah, right? Which you guys had to write a tafsir, or write the and explain the tafsir on the ayats from Surah Al-Baqarah, right? I gotta check and make sure everybody submitted that homework too. Some people's I checked and sent back to them. And the ayahs from the hadith, and the statements from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If a person accepts that, then a person is Muslim regardless, because Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, I'm trying to remember the Arabic to the ayah. Hold on one second. Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, He says that the believer, right? He said the believer is the one who believes in Allah, in His messenger, ثُمَّ لَمْ يَتَرْبُ. And after that, he doesn't have any doubt after that. He doesn't have any doubt, right? He believes what Allah Ta'ala said. He believes what the Messenger of Allah said. Khalas. After that, he doesn't have any doubt. So the science pertaining to ilm al-kalam is to learn, is for two reasons. One, alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The first reason is to clarify any matters that a person is having doubt in with regards to understanding. Because a knowledge of a thing doesn't become incumbent upon you until you are engaging in that thing. The second reason is that you can defend the creed of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So a lot of people, are like, man, we don't need to, argue and things. No, there's times where argumentation is necessary. The way that we go about things now, I believe that it's like a hodgepodge, and people are all over the place, and people have certain agendas, and the way that everything is going is creating almost like war type of mentality. So the remedy to it isn't to back off and not learn anything. The remedy is to actually learn things and go out and start teaching, to give clarity. Because remember, if we go back to the introductory class of Mirat al Tulaab, the Shaykh who mentioned one thing was that he needs to, he's removing tahayyur, to remove mental obscurity, where a person is blocked from understanding. We're not trying to cause any confusion. You're trying to give clarity. And this is what a mujaddid does, right? A person who's a reviver. And those who follow the path of a mujaddid, if they're following that path, one of the things that you know is that they're giving clarity on subjects. And when they give clarity on subjects, then you'll see the barakat that is contained in all of that, and you'll see people start to come together, right? Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What happened? We're still in the first the chapter on chapter 1 on Arkan Imaan. So all of these things, you're bringing clarity to this. So if you're a student of mine and you made it to this point, then you should start to begin to be able to have and develop the ability, even if developing the ability to correct particular matters and give clarity to them and not cause more tahayyur, more confusion, right? Because this is also why we go further in knowledge, right? Our knowledge is in order to get a maqam, get a station, and know Allah Ta'ala, bi'arfillah, right? Bi'arfillah, to know Allah Ta'ala, right? But, however, Allah Ta'ala, the more that you resemble Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and those men who followed him, meaning the Sahaba and those who adhere to the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the stronger your maqam becomes, the stronger your station becomes, right? Because remember, the greatest opening in Islam, the greatest opening is where you're doing amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy ala munkar. That is the greatest opening, right? The alim, which is another book that I plan on going over by Sheikh Abdullahi, he talks about the station of each person, right? He talks about, I think it's 3 people in there, 4 people. He talks about the alim, the scholar. He talks about he actually talks about 6 people. He talks about the alim. He talks about the student. He talks about the abid, the person who's a extreme worshiper, right? He talks about the Muslim, the in general Muslim, and he talks about the Amir al-Mu'mineen, the leader, the Qadi and stuff. But he usually falls under the category of the scholar. It's a book I'm going to go over, inshallah. A lot of us are stuck at the station of the abid, right? The worshiper, which is not a problem. However, if we are living and residing in Bilad al-Kufr, and your only desire is to aspire to be a Sufi or be like the Sufi, the image that the people are given about Ahl Sufiya is that they're people that's just, concerned about the heart. They do dhikr all day, with some their variations of how they gain their opening. Some people like jumping up and down, dancing, break dancing, junior flexion, and all those things. And they give that image as if this is the absolute way. And so then, as a person that's learning, they will start to be able to break themselves from that kind of misleading kind of opening. The greatest opening a person can have, the greatest ma'rifah, is the same thing that Allah Ta'ala gave our Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, right? The vision of seeing the Prophet ﷺ, it is one of the greatest things in this dunya, but it's not the ultimate. When the Shaykh who seen the Prophet ﷺ in the dream, when you read about this, he also was given that indication it is time to fight and establish Allah's deen, right? His whole matter, his whole mission was he was studying and he was calling people back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But how much of a abid, a worshiper you can be if when you walk outside the masjid door, all you see is naked women? When you going in your home, all you see is drug dealing, drug use, you smell marijuana smoke. If these things don't anger you, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, when you see an evil, you change it with your hand. And if you can't do that, then you at least change it with your tongue. And at very minimum, you should hate it in your heart. Many of us don't have a concern in the world about what's going on. We don't say anything. We don't do anything. And it don't even bother us now because we got to the point, as long as I mind my business, I'm okay. We have a New York City, public housing authority type of mentality to the rest of the world. He ain't shoot me. I'm going to my house, lock my door. This is our type of mentality. As a Muslim, we should have concern for our believers. If you see someone that isn't properly praying, figure out a strategic way. You got to know the temperament of the person. A strategic way to help them understand and give clarity to that particular subject. So we'll go on. He mentions in this next paragraph, he quotes Imaan Ainiyu in his commentary upon the Sahih Bukhari. He says that Iman, true Iman with the majority of the ulama, means acceptance of the messenger, upon him be peace, alayhi salatu wassalam, in everything which is known to have come from by necessity, with absolute certainty, certain acceptance, regardless if it's with proof or not. In the words that it's an unqualified acceptance indicates that it is not necessary that this belief be connected to the actions of the limbs, and the words restricted with what is indispensable excludes that which is not known by necessity to come from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we're talking about the word tasdiq, right? Tasdiq bil qalb. He said, for the tenets of belief derived in this fashion is not included under that which is called Iman. It is for this reason that the one who denies the tenets of belief derived from ijtihad cannot be declared la yukaffaru bil ijma', right? They're not declared a kafir by the consensus. But the meaning of belief with absolute confirmation is restricted in order to exclude acceptance by speculation. So a person couldn't just wake up and say, I think this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, and I believe you have a lot of that, especially with non-Muslims amongst us in the neighborhoods. They never got a clear explanation, but they're given a speculative thought on how they're Muslim, right? And I've come across people like this in life, in my travels, that they had declared themselves to be Muslim but did not share the beliefs of a Muslim. And then when you ask them about, how did you come to this conclusion, you see that it had nothing to do with Islam. It was more so a thing where it was pro-black, it was a pro-black thing. They was reading different books, they would believe, they'll say Allah, 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 but then at the same time they believe in some Kemet god or something of that nature, and so on and so forth. And and they make a hodgepodge of belief, which you have with a lot of the Afrocentric or African oriented type of movements in America. So they're ruled out. He said, for this speculation is not sufficient to acquire true belief. The ulama restricted the meaning of absolute belief in order to exclude belief based on delusive fantasies from the tenets of beliefs established in the heart. All right, and for the tenets of belief established in the heart is considered sound belief with the majority of the ulama. Also, you have people such as you had pseudo-Islamic movements, like you had the Ansar law community, the ones that were based in Brooklyn. They started off, you hear them speaking about Islam, but then they get into some other things about their beliefs, and it starts exposing them. They start exposing themselves. Now, وقال المؤلف رحمه الله, he said, وقال أحمد ابن حجر الحيثمي في الفتح المبين الإيمان لغة مطلقا تصديق والشرعا وتصديق بالقلب فقط وإدعانه لما علم بضروري إنه من الدين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ثم قال بعض الكلام وحد الإيمان بما ذكرناه وهو مختار جمهور الشاعر وعليهم ماتريدية. ثم قال بعض الكلام فيجب تصديق بكل ما جاء به يعني محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم من اعتقاد وهو ما قصد منه اعتقاده أو عملية وهو ما قصد منه عمل. ومعنى تصديق به اعتقاد إنه حق وصدق كما أخبر به. وتفاصيل هذين كثيرة جدا إذ هن حاصل ما في كتب كلامية ودواوين السنة فأكتفى بالإجمال وهو أن يقر بقول لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إقرارا مطابقا لقلبه واستسلامي. وأما تفاصيل فما لا حظاه منها ببصيرته بأن جذبه جذبون إلى معتقده وجب الإيمان به انتهى. So the Sheikh, he goes on and he mentions here in the closing of this particular chapter and section, he said, Ahmed ibn Hajar al-Haytami said in his book called Fatul Mubin, he said that Iman, belief, linguistically, is absolute acceptance, and according to the Sharia, it is the acceptance of the heart only, in compliance to what is known by necessity to be from the deen of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He also said, after a little, the parameters of belief are simply based on what we have mentioned. This is the understanding of the majority of the Ash'ariyah, right? The Ash'ariyah. And in line with the doctrine or the madhab of the Maturidiyah, right? Because there's only when in each science, I just want to throw this out there, inshallah. In each science, see, we're not studying the sciences in order to increase our iman, right? Sometimes it happens as a result of what you run across. You come across on what the ayats or the hadith is saying, but when you come across the istinbat to the ulama, it gives you fahm, that understanding, right? Your iman becomes stronger based off of the clarity giving from those particular proofs. But as a student, when you're studying the sciences of the Sharia, you're gaining understanding, right? When you're studying the science of fiqh, right, you're gaining understanding, but also in order to practice properly. When you're studying the science of Aqidah, it is to remove any type of obscure beliefs, any type of doubt. But your iman is increased based off of what Allah Ta'ala and what His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, or also what you're instructed to do. The more you do, the more your iman gets stronger. The less you do, the weaker it gets, right? So when you're studying the sciences, each science within itself has madhahibs. They have madhabs. And when you're using the word madhab, it is the way or the path or, based on the principles of this particular person. Now, honestly, I don't know why when you read a lot of the books in English, I know why. It's to cause more more confusion. When you read a lot of books in English that are written where these people are getting their PhD, and things of that nature based off of the books, when you read something about that would discuss about the hold on, let me check the time on Zoom. Okay, if those of you who are on Zoom, if we run out, inshallah, a time, use that same number back up top, log back in, inshallah. But anyway, so the different madhahibs. A person is following that particular way. So when you read some of these books, because I've read a lot of English books, especially pertaining to Islam and things like of that nature, they always mention that there were all types of different madhabs back in the day and so on and so forth, right? Also, another thing that's also when they narrate to you about madhabs and scholars, it's always being told from an academic standpoint, and it's not being explained from a ruling standpoint. When we finish this particular text for those men and women in the Jama'ah, this kind of like makes you eligible. It moves you up in your maqam, and we'll treat you accordingly, right? It will make you eligible if the imam or the amir of the Jama'at, whether in that locale or nationally, picks you to be part of that diwan, to be part of that majlis, right? Because with a student, you're getting your foundation. This is going to be your foundation. You will continue to study the madhab. The stronger you are, the more you are to a leader, like a set of encyclopedic books, right? An encyclopedia that makes reference. He may not have the answer, or he may have the answer and he consult with others to see if there's any conflicting ruling. It doesn't stop at that point. That's why I'm saying that this, and we're going to treat this as such, is more of a higher level study, within our curriculum. It's more of a higher level study. There's some people that be consulted. Now, me personally, honestly, if I consult you and you giving me a whole bunch of bin Baz and Uthaymin rulings, you might be sat down out of the majlis, like, hey, you need to take a back seat over there somewhere, inshallah. And we'll give you more references. But anyway, each the madhabs. So what they always tell, they be like, oh, there were all kinds of madhabs. There were 500 madhabs. Everybody was a mujtahid, and so on and so forth, and had the right? And they'll tell you, which is true. Every imam had their own madhab, their own principles, and some of them faded because their students didn't carry it, and so on and so forth. Okay, well, alhamdulillah, walillahil hamd. But what we see is that those four that are recognized, those is the four that Allah put extreme barakah in it. Khalas. There's no other way. If you look at the approach that the Shaykh has with regards to the different madhahib, he says that those four, that's it. There's no other rules outside of that. And everyone's restricted and everyone is restricted as a muqallid to that particular method, right? Now, why is that? Because you have to follow them in their principles. You can't climb and excel scholarship unless you go through that particular methodology in order for to excel. Now, most people believe, because of their approach with regards to deen from an English criteria, because a lot of us also use the kuffar criteria as well, right? Two things that you have to have as a student: a teacher and the ability to do research outside of your teacher. Look up the person. When you're studying and you're hearing names, look up the biographies of the individuals, right? Know who you're quoting. Know whether he's Maliki, whether he's Shafi, whether he's Hanbali, whether he's Hanafi, right? You should know. You should have that background information. The same criteria. You're not going to judge. You're not doing it based off of the judge whether or not the person is credible or not, but it's more so to familiarize you with who you're speaking of, right? The same way with hadith. When you're studying those chain, the ilm rijal, you're studying about the men. You're learning about them so that you'll have some understanding about them. Now, a lot of times we try to take and apply the rules from the science of hadith, and and we'll make a hodgepodge like these guys. They say, what is this? Sheikh Rabia is the alim al-ilm rijal. So instead of them limiting him just to the science of hadith, what happens is they expand him, to the point like he could just look at you and tell like he's the most knowledgeable ilm rijal. So if he's backbiting someone, they accept it as revelation because they said that he's the alama ilm rijal, the knowledge of the science of men. You see? So this is what is happening. Hold on one second, I gotta restart the Zoom for people. Now, so this is how they are expounding, and giving this person. So you have to understand within the sciences of our deen, there are madhabs, and the scholar may derive his point in principle based off of one thing and not the other. Like, I'll give you an example. Abu Hanifa and Imam Shafi, when it comes to accepting a hadith to practice in fiqh, like a ruling. Like, let's talk about Rafa Yadain throughout the entire salah, right? Raising your hands throughout the salah. Every time you say Allahu Akbar, you raise your hands. There's hadith for both. Imam Shafi'i, he is, and those who follow him in his ijtihad, of the opinion that every takbir you raise your hands, except in ruku. Except in sujood. He takes this opinion and approach because of the narration that he has from Abdullah ibn Umar, and he believes is sounder than the other narration that Abu Hanifa takes, where you don't do Rafa Yadain except the raising the hands, except in the Takbir Ihram, except in the opening Takbir. Imam Shafi believes that his position is stronger because his chain is shorter. Right? His sanad, his chain, his isnad in the hadith, that his chain is shorter, is sounder. Okay? The least amount of narrators in between, the closer you are to the truth. Abu Hanifa bases it based off of the strength of the narrators. Who's the more knowledgeable of them? As far as our madhab, Imam Malik, there's two sound opinions and either one is correct. So when people develop, you see right there, he just mentioned three madhabs. And let's take it according to its literal meaning. Three different paths. Okay? Now this isn't a comparative fiqh Frankenstein type of class, but what I'm mentioning to you here to show you as an example of how madhabs develop. Okay? The everyday person, such as ourselves, we would not have been able to come up with this and came up with that. We would have been arguing like we usually do, you know, Negroes in the hood taking two hadiths, one hadith to abrogate the other hadith and fighting with each other. That's what we would have done. As far as the inner knowledge, we don't know. A lot of our rhetoric is based off of just to study in order to refute, to oppose the opposite party. As you'll develop in time, you'll start to see, especially when you begin to understand people, and you have to understand people and the people that you're dealing with, you'll start to see a lot of people they'll reject the hadith, not because of authenticity, soundness, or anything like that, but because it seems like this is something that the Salafis would do. All right? This is why some people reject hadith. Some people that are influenced by the rhetoric of the Salafiyah in their criteria, they will reject the whole term and science altogether of tasawwuf based off of some of the actions that the goofy Sufis do. And so therefore what happens? You lose embracing two sciences. You lose embracing hadith because you think that the Wahhabis do it and that's the only reason why they do it. And then you'll also lose out on tasawwuf. The two of them, you need them together in order to be like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or even to get 1/4. So it'd be a rejection. Some people study in order to make rebuttals. So back to the different madhahibs, they're based off of those principles. I know I took you around the world in order to get to that point, but I want you to understand what's going on here. So even in Aqidah, there are madhabs in Kalam. There are some principles that Imam Maturidi disagree with Imam Ashari. There's some principles. All right? But it doesn't raise it to the point of anybody being deviant or anybody being a kafir. Not to that. Because of its approach and what it's understanding. Like very common basic understanding. The Ash'aris, When it comes to Iman increasing and decreasing, we say that Iman increases and decreases based on the text. The Maturidiyya say no. Iman is either you got it or you don't. Either you believe or you don't. Right? And all of this is based off of what we're talking about right here. What is unactually understood, where you'll see the terminology, the language that they use, it sounds as if they differ, but they mean the same thing. The Maturidiyya say that the Ashris, what they really mean is the yaqeen, the certainty, his level of absolute certainty in belief. It increases and it decreases, right? And you can tell so based off of one's actions. If you are a person that is desiring paradise, when your desire is strong and you're reading the Quran and Allah talks about paradise, where He talks about tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, right? Under your feet there'll be rivers, and a person is just sitting and he's doing tafakkur. He's doing his reflection. No talking, no calling no one, no updating Facebook. He's reflecting on this ayat. And he knows one thing that he knows with certainty, he's going to die. And he's reflecting on this ayat. And he's reflecting on his ayat. And he says to himself, how can I get to be at this point where Allah is talking about these rivers flowing under my feet? Then he begins to look throughout the Quran, and within it does something to his heart, and it motivates him. He starts doing more sunnah. He avoids sin. He doesn't backbite people. He avoids sin, even if what they're doing may be permissible. He may even go to the extent of avoiding those things that are permissible. Not avoiding, but not doing so much of those things that are permissible, right? This is what happens with Iman. There's more you're certain about it. When you praying, your yaqeen, you have certainty. And what's a reflection that is weak? When you engage in sins, where you don't really have no scrutiny with regards to your Islam or anything of that nature. You don't have that type of scrutiny. Those things aren't important to you. You don't read the Quran. Like, for instance, there's a narration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that mentions about the parents of the child who's memorizing Quran. Okay? The parents of the child who memorizes Quran. And on the day of judgment, that child will be able to intercede for his parents, the Muslims, as long as they're Muslim. He'll be able to intercede for them. Right? A concerned parent that's concerned about himself as well as his child, he would usher that child to go memorize the Quran. Why? One, to benefit that child, and two, to also benefit their own selves. Right? Just like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, for us, the one who's memorizing Quran and he dies, wherever he died memorizing, wherever he died and what he was memorizing, it will be recited in the grave, and it will act as an intercessor for him. So if you're a person that you memorized the Fatiha, you die the next day after the Fatiha will be your intercessor because you didn't get an opportunity. Now, this doesn't mean for us we're sitting around, we're watching court TV and everything else. No, we're sincerely trying to memorize the Quran, but death overtook us before we were able to finish memorizing. This is what this means. Person knows that narration, they start acting on it. Yaqeen, they acting with certainty. Person reads that narration, mashallah, it's good to know, but he doesn't move, his yaqeen isn't as strong. Because why? He knows he's going to die. He knows about the wazn al-a'mal, the weighing of the actions, right? He knows about the kitab, the kutub, the receiving the scrolls. So what would he do? He would spend more of his time doing those things that will get him more hasanat, good deeds that will help him on the day of judgment. So let me get back to the text so we can end this, inshallah. So the point I want to make is that of all of this, is that there are madhabs in all of the sciences, even science of hadith, the science of fiqh, Arabic language. There's madhabs in Arabic language. That's a matter of fact, when we were studying the Al-Ajrumiyah, that was one of the things that opened my mind even further to understanding the ulum din, the sciences of the deen, is that there is various madhabs. There's a word that you'll use in your Arabic studies. Some ulama use the word jar. Some ulama use the word khaft when talking about that subject of i'rab. Some ulama say that the noun is stronger. That's their madhab. Some ulama say, some ulama say that all words are derived from the ism, and some ulama say all words are derived from the fi'l, from the verb. Okay, so that's just my point, my case in point. So I don't want my students, we're studying this particular text, still be confused about the understanding of Ashari and Maturidi. There are two madhabs from the science of Kalam. So he says, he quotes Ahmed ibn Hajar al-Haytami, not Ibn Hajar Asqalani, but Ibn Hajar al-Haytami. That's a different scholar. Look it up, research him, know who you're quoting. He said, belief is absolute acceptance. All right? According to the Sharia, it is acceptance of the heart only in compliance to what is known by necessity from the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He also said, after a little, the parameters of belief are simply based on what we have mentioned, and this is the chosen understanding of the majority of the Ashari, and this is also in line with the doctrine of the Maturidiyya. All right. He then said, after a little while, it is obligatory to accept everything which he sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with, meaning Muhammad. All right, the tenets of belief means what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what the Messenger of Allah intended in his beliefs, while behavior is what he alayhi salatu wasalam intended by his behavior. And the meaning of acceptance is to believe as a doctrine that it is the truth and truthful, just as he is, as he informed us. Now, the minute details of these concepts are very extensive and have been defined in the books of Ilm al-Kalam and the intellectual accumulations of the Sunnah. Right? So, we see here now the Shaykh is starting to separate things for us to understand. By one, he mentions about the books of Kalam, the details of the books of Kalam, and also some of the books, the intellectual accumulations of the Sunnah. Right? So what does this do now? This takes the common people out of it. Go back to the introductory class. Go back and listen to the lectures, the review. Read the text. I put the PDF for everyone in the as we go through it. If there's any errors in the translation or anything, I'll make the correction. Or if there's some a better definition that will help you understand, I will give you that definition. Like when we talked about in the last class the word amana, right? Amana, what that meant. So, but anyway, what this doing is what the Shaykh who is doing is he's separating now with regards to knowledge. With students, you're expected to be at a certain level, a certain understanding, or at least get to that certain point. He didn't go through all of the details where you'll spend 20 and 30 years studying, right? But rather that is for your own research to join other halakas, right? Like if, my recommendation to the people in the Jama'at, I'm not ready to teach it yet, but if you find a class where there's someone from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'at and he's teaching Jawhar al-Tawheed, join in that class, right? It's a book by Imam Ibrahim al-Lakhani. He's a Maliki scholar, right? Learn that text from beginning to end, right? But with us, the majority of our books, our secondary level books, is Ilm al-Kalam is in there. The Risala, right? Ashal al-Masalik, the Aqidah portion there. It's all included in there. But if it has to be a separate series, if you really want to get into Ilm al-Kalam on a more scholastic level, Our Sheikh, he studied, what you find in the approach that he takes is a summary of the Sanusi books of creed, right? He has 3 books of creed. Now, I'm telling you as a student. I'm not telling you just as like an average everyday person. I wouldn't even have this conversation with a lot of people. I'll tell them, learn Usuluddin and stick with the Quran, or I might refer them to a book that's more popular and easy for them to find. Imam Sanusi, he has a Sugira, right? Al-Wusta and Al-Kubra, right? It'd be a great benefit to the community for someone to study those 3 books and gain the ability to teach them. You want to master the science of Aqidah and Kalam, study those 3 books. There's plenty of ulama that that is willing to teach it to you in the Sudan, in Nigeria, those utilize, go learn those books from beginning to end, right? It can be useful for the community. However, what we have right now is sufficient. But for those that continue, because that's like I said, scholasticism, scholarship is research and having teachers. Now, so now to the last section. The last section where the Shaykh, he says, وَقُلْتُ. And when the Shaykh, he says, قُلْتُ, and I say, this is where he's giving his fatwa on a particular subject. وَحَدُنَا الْإِيمَانُ بِأَنَّهُ تَصْدِيقُ مَا عُلِّمَ مُجِيعُ الرَّسُولَ بِدُرُورِ وَهُوَ صَحِيحُ المعتمد وعليه يبني تصحيح الإيمان المقلد فشدوا أيديكم عليه لأنه الذي عليه فتوى من الزمان الصحابة إلى قيام الساعة وبالله توفيق. So the Shehu, he mentions in this last in this last portion, right? He says, I read the Arabic to the very last line. I didn't read the line before that because I didn't. Whatever. Anyway, he said the general belief which is determined is sufficient is to verbally pronounce La ilaha illallah Muhammadar Rasulullah affirmatively, in conformity with the heart's absolute acceptance with this, right? As for the minute details of belief, it is what is perceived by means of research insight to basir, right? By formulating within the convictions that which is obligatory to have in it. And like I said, your tabassir, your insight, your development of insight is to keep going and studying those higher levels of books of Aqidah, right? As with regards to that. But if there's a person that comes to you and said that they're amongst the people of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, you are to treat them as Muslim until otherwise, which the next chapter will go into. We don't ask them, about whether they Salafi or not, unless they give you, saying things or doing things from amongst that will give you that indication. You don't ask a person, are you Shi'i, right? But when the person exposes that and you deal with it, we have to learn to stick with points of principles and not personalities. Stick with points of principle and not personality. Because you have people that will just like, look, this is my sheikh. I love my sheikh and I reject, the fact that you may have sound Iman. I reject it because sheikh such and such said his opinion is this. That is not what we do. We stick to principles. That is the minhaj of the Shaykh. You stick to principles and not personality. So then the Shaykh, he says in the last part, he says, I say, and like I said again, I'll repeat it again, that whenever the Shaykh, he says, qultu, I say, then he's issuing fatwa on this issue. He said the parameters of true belief is the acceptance of what is known by necessity to have come from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This means to have sound subservience in it internally. Be submissive to it, subservient. Don't be so argumentative. What's the word? Tajdul. You don't be so argumentative towards it as we are towards the sunnah, right? We should be able to get to the point. This is why even like a whole thing of the whole argument of sub versus qab versus sadl, right? We have our reasons why we believe sadl was sounder. But if a person prays qab, it's like, okay, mashallah. They got their narration, right? We have the amal. That's why we don't pray qab. We pray sadr, right? We have the amal and what the people of Medina practice, right? We have our reasons of why we believe it's sounder. They have their reasons of why they believe it's sounder, right? So the thing is principles, not personality. We're not going to argue back and forth. Well, my sheikh says it's sounder to do this. Like I'm looking at it now from a lot of the American students of Sheikh Kitani, a lot of them are very argumentative. A lot of them are argumentative before they even met the man, but they even argumentative now. So they become Maliki and to argue, as if they will be able to eradicate sadl. They want to eliminate it, and then they post a video of the Sheikh and got people going back and forth. If you're a student of that particular teacher teaching and he's teaching you something, that is between y'all. There's a time where you can try to argue, right? A scholastic discussion. But some of them take it and they run widespread with it and start, trying to tear down the walls and so on and so forth. The people are subtle because of the letting the limbs hang. It's such a humbling nature, a humbling gesture. We're very humble. We don't argue as much as everyone else, but we do get on the defensive, and sometimes we can go overboard too, though. But anyway, that's my case in point. Have subservience in with the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That true belief is built upon it. So he said, therefore, hold to it unflinchingly, because this was and will be the basis of all legal decisions from the time of the Sahaba up into the appearance of the hour. All right. So what the Shehu is doing is establishing us to be able to embrace khilaf based off of evidences of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that you will abandon your position, but this is all based off of insight and research. All right. So with that, we'll stop there. Our homework is going to be some more writing assignments. And I'll probably give like a little short quiz. So inshallah, you'll have till next Sunday. I'll post the homework in the group, inshallah, so that you'll know. But it's going to be some writing assignments. Like I said, if you're in this class, you're of a higher caliber. You're a little higher than the caliber of dealing with Umdatul Bayan, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to deal with it and such. So a lot of our studies, it coming from this subject, is going to require a lot of reading and writing and studying, because how else would you develop your insight? By reading, by writing, by listening to lectures connected to the subjects, right? Matter of fact, if I can, I'll post now. Well, yeah, I'll post it for your leisure. There's a YouTube series on the books of Imam Sanusi, done by I believe he's a Hanafi scholar. So it's just for your leisure. As you get serious, and sometimes I believe this is a situation, especially with my people, indigenous black people, we're afraid of change. Sometimes you're afraid of change because when you become a student, it's just like even like a person who goes to college or whatever, he's taking up a trade where it's intense. You change who you are when you go to paramedic school, EMT school, nursing school. You begin to change. Your attitude, your behavior, demeanor, it changes, right? Because you become more immersed in your studies. And so then when you come out of your immersion in your studies, and it's like, and when you're studying, it's like you walk out of a book. It's like you stepped out of the book and you come back into the real world. And sometimes you want to unwind, but those things that you're trying to unwind with is no more befitting of your behavior and your character, right? This will happen. A lot of us are afraid of change, and this is why we don't spend a lot of time studying and researching, because we're afraid, right? If you listen to most arguments that most of our people have, they're afraid of change. I ain't no Pakistani. I ain't no Arab. I ain't no this and I ain't that. We got our own code. It's about they're fighting just to remain the same. They're not comfortable with themselves, right? Women, the same thing. Change. When you gotta put your garb on, you want to take your garb off when you go around your old friends. Muslim men, the same thing. You don't want to wear your kufi. You don't want to wear your thawb when you go. You're afraid of change. Embrace who you are. If you're a Muslim, this is who you become. If you're a student, this is who you're becoming. And a lot of your time, you're not always going to spend a lot of time watching Netflix and chill. You're going to be doing a lot of research, right? And one of the things is that I urge the men to have your women on the same page. Because if you're a lover of knowledge and your wife doesn't love knowledge, she becomes unattractive to you, right? Most women are worried about another woman becoming the wife, the co-wife. You need to worry about your man becoming immersed in knowledge, because the more knowledge comes, the more he changes, right? One of my sheikhs, Sheikh Abdul Rahman, he was from Ghana. He was telling me he was into his studies, and he gave me this advice, and I'm giving you this advice because it was handed down to me. I'm just giving it a little bit different than the way he gave it. He told me, and I could tell the story because he told me this story just like this. It wasn't like a private, private wasn't anything. I had to hold a manner. He said he was studying. He was in his year. I forgot what mahad he was in, but he was into his studies, and he was reading, right? And his wife was trying to get his attention. And usually, what's the attribute that go along with a student? It's usually a book. So she was reading the book, and she wanted his attention. And, and he said he kept, like putting off. He said, listen, I have to memorize this. It's really important to me. Inshallah, I'll see you soon, And he was reading a book. And this also means, too, as well. I mean, this is why I'm telling you the story. This is the same reason why he told me his story, is that we have to have balance. Because I experienced what I'm telling you. So he said his wife was trying to get his attention. And so she took and poured poured whatever, like a drink or something on his book. And he said he got so angry, he hit her. Right? And he said from that moment, it made him realize that he has to develop a balance. But also, every woman is not going to be a scholar as well. You have to understand that. Right? Not every woman is not going to be a scholar in that capacity. So you have to put her at level of scholarship in her own right. But what does that mean? Does that mean the woman shouldn't study? Absolutely not. This is unethical. Okay, it's unethical to have a wife that is ignorant. Malcolm taught us this. Malcolm said, "Who wants a woman that he can't have what man wants a woman that he can't have a conversation with?" Right? Then he went on and gave a lecture. He's like, nobody want to talk about the Johnsons. Don't nobody want to talk about TV. Don't nobody want to talk about, well, you need to go ahead and go study your lessons. Make sure you can have an intellectual conversation with your man, right? I'm telling you this as students, and I mean this sincerely. Make sure your family is on the same page. They don't have to be at the same level, but make sure you guys are on the same page. You want to keep people out your business? Have your family start becoming people that's engaged in knowledge. What happens then? Your wives are not going to want to keep talking. Sometimes if they're afraid to shed who they used to be and embrace who they are, they'll keep going back and getting caught up in gossip and things of that nature. But they don't want to get caught up in it. And you have to develop that same attitude. Everybody has to be on the same page. And this is what you've seen exemplified. Look, from the Sahaba, you had Umar ibn Khattab. All of his children were on the same path he was on. You had Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu. All of them were on the same path. Ali ibn Abi Talib, Qadamallahu wajh. All of his family was on the same page. When Uthman got killed, Ali had assigned his two sons, Hassan and Hussein, to stand guard and protect Uthman from being murdered outside their door. That's how involved the family is, right? Not no, oh, I'm just gonna do this and he do his thing and I ain't got nothing to do with that. Oh my God, he's always talking about knowledge. Oh, that's all. Get on his way. Get on his way, because the more the man excels, the more he falls in love, the true love, right? My sheikh from North Carolina once told me, he said the woman has to be the fool for the man, and the man has to be a fool for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And why is that? Because one will lead the other to follow. So with that, inshallah, ikhwan, I'll leave you with that, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.